afternoon to one and all present here. I'm Mandira Shetty, and I am a failure. Awfully pessimistic for a 17-year-old, I'm aware. But hear me out. I care deeply about feminism, yet misogyny still exists. I'm incredibly passionate about animal welfare, yet euthanasia and animal cruelty still exist. So now who here thinks I'm a failure? Probably none of you. Because you recognize the unrealistic standard that I'm setting myself to. Yet so many of us, on a daily basis, tread away from being a part of change in the mere fear that what we are doing is insignificant enough. But I believe our problem is not in our ability to create change, but how we've defined it. We've convinced ourselves that change only matters when it's extraordinary, when it changes the whole world overnight. So we wait. We wait until we're older, until we're more experienced. We wait until someone else takes the lead. But history was never made by people who waited. It was always made by ordinary people willing to take the first step, deciding to become the catalyst. I'm a commerce student, but I'm going to bring a little bit of science into this, so bear with me. But a catalyst is chemically defined as a substance that helps fasten a chemical reaction without losing its original integrity. And you and me, as in human beings, have several thousand catalysts in the form of enzymes present within us. So metaphorically, it would be accurate to say that being a catalyst is embedded in us. Being the linkage between what has been and what could be is in our very nature. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "The only constant in life is change." He also said, "You cannot step in the same river twice, as the river may never be the same. The water is constantly flowing, just as people are constantly changing." So if change is so imperative and inevitable, then why are we so afraid to participate in it? And perhaps change doesn't happen through one revolutionary moment. Perhaps it happens softly, quietly, one person at a time. I learned this lesson much earlier than I wish I would have. I was 8 years old, it was 2 days after my birthday, and I had just finished music class. It was routine for my father to pick me up, but I was 15 minutes early. And with my newfound age came newfound bravery. I decided to walk home myself. It was 2 crossings away. A simple feat, yet one that would change my life as I knew it. I was halfway through, feeling unabashedly proud of myself, when a group of men stopped beside me. They got off their bikes and they cornered me. I fell to the ground. The rest is a blur. Trauma has this unique way of stealing away parts of your memory in order to protect you. So I don't remember much. But I do remember running. I remember reaching home. I remember collapsing into my mother's lap, unable to breathe through the tears. I remember feeling disgusting. I didn't talk about it again. Not for a month, not for a year, not for 2, for 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of pretending that if I just ignored it hard enough, maybe it would disappear. But through all of this, I've learned one thing. Silence doesn't protect victims, it protects pain. When I was 13, I was scrolling through my phone, and I found a video of a girl sharing her experience very similar to mine. She wasn't letting it define her, and she definitely wasn't asking for sympathy. She was using it to make other people feel less alone. That changed something in me. For the first time, I realized that the worst thing that had ever happened to me did not have to be the most important thing about me. Maybe my pain could become my purpose. So I took the first step. I began speaking. at home, at school, to anyone willing to listen. Not because I had all the answers, quite the opposite, but because I knew what it was like to feel like you're the only one. At the age of 15, I channeled my hurt and frustration into pen and paper. I wrote every thought I had in the most abstract way possible. Before I knew it, the words were rhyming and I was writing poems. I wrote 50 poems that year, each one filled to the brim with my most vulnerable thoughts. Those pages were my catalyst. The catalyst to the healed version of myself that stands before you today. The version that is not embarrassed of what happened to her, but is proud to have overcome it. At the age of 17, I published 21 of those poems compiled in a book. I did it in the hopes of making at least one person feel less alone. An excerpt from one of my poems, Lonely But Never Alone, oftentimes echoed through my mind. It goes, I mastered the art of suppression until time came for me to rupture. Maybe the loneliness will leave eventually. Hope to smile again. Not today, but someday, definitely. It's surreal to say that that day is here. I can stand here today with the biggest smile on my face, saying something I never thought I'd have the courage to say. I am not ashamed of what happened to me, because the shame was never mine to carry. The day I began sharing my story was not the day my pain disappeared. It was the day my pain stopped having control over me. That first conversation became another, then another. Eventually, girls I barely knew were sharing their stories with me. Not because I was extraordinary, but because someone had taken the first step. Sometimes, courage isn't standing in front of hundreds of people, admitting to what happened to you. Sometimes it's a whisper. This happened to me, to one person you trust. That whisper turns into conversation. Conversation brings awareness. Awareness turns into action, and action blossoms change. If there is one thing I want every survivor listening here to understand, it is this. What happened to you is not your identity. It is not the title of your story. It is barely a part of it. You are not defined by the worst thing that someone chose to do to you. You are defined by every action you take afterward. I know, speaking up is terrifying. You wonder whether you'll be believed. But the day you begin speaking up, you take back the part of yourself that fear stole from you. Not because speaking up magically fixes everything. I wish it did, but it doesn't. But because silence no longer controls your life. And to everyone listening here today, I have a question for you. If someone you loved told you they were hurt, would your first response make them feel seen or make them wish they had stayed silent? As for many survivors, what happened to them is just the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the worry is wondering whether they'll be believed, whether they'll be blamed, whether they'll be judged. The people around a victim oftentimes become the first catalyst in their healing. The words you share with them once they share their story may become the ones you remember for the rest of your lives. So imagine the difference between hearing, what were you wearing and why were you out so late? And I'm so sorry this happened to you. One responds deep in shame when the other begins healing. No survivor can control what happens to them, but each one of us can choose what happens next. Choose to believe. Choose not to blame. Choose to be a safe space. Because sometimes healing begins with nothing more than the right response. People often ask me, don't you think your experience made you strong? I think they're asking the wrong question. Strength isn't something that trauma gives you. It's what you choose afterward. Every time you promise that your pain won't be someone else's future. Every time you stand beside those who feel alone. Every time you promise that what happened to you will not be the reason you stop the world from being kinder than it was yesterday. You choose strength. Earlier, I told you I was a failure. That wasn't entirely true. Yes, I recognize that none of these are world-changing achievements, but they are life-changing ones. But no, I don't consider myself a complete success either. Not because I don't find my achievements admirable, but because I believe it was my responsibility. My responsibility as an educated person to educate another. My responsibility to speak up for those who can't for themselves. My responsibility to be the safe place I once so desperately needed. My contribution to being a catalyst has looked different at different stages of my life. Some have been big, some have been small, some extraordinary, some close to invisible. Yet none were insignificant. We spend so much time in our lives waiting for someone better, someone older, someone more influential, someone else. But what if that someone is already within you? What if it's the girl who's been keeping a secret for years? Or a parent who chooses belief over blame? Or a friend who chooses to listen instead of judge? Catalysts don't finish reactions, they accelerate them. And that's all any of us have to do. So when you leave here today, don't ask yourself, how can I change the whole world? Instead, ask yourself, what is the first step only I can take? Because like I said earlier, history was never made by people who waited for the perfect moment. It was always made by one ordinary person deciding to become the catalyst. Because change is contagious, and one courageous first step can change someone's world, which in turn can change the whole world. Thank you so much.